Hey, Bladman here. So we're doing Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 2. Episode 2. For those of you who don't know, I don't like this show. I love these books. This show is a bastardization, and I'm going to try to politely explain how they continuously fail. And for those few who saw the first season, and we're like, oh, I look forward to your review on the second season. Well, we're in it now. Mind you, this took me like 2-3 days to like get through. It's so bad. It actually hurts me watching it. Like, I guess the equivalent would be if you have a fanboy like myself of a particular thing and then they do it. But this is like a different form of torture because I watch movies and I'm like, oh, they ruined it. Like Aragon. Like, I liked the books Aragon. I think they weren't great fantasy, but they were good. And then I saw the show and I was like, or maybe it was a movie. It was just horrible. It was just bad. I felt bad because it was like, this is bad. And I am coming to the conclusion that the industry doesn't know how to do fantasy. And you have people, and I haven't looked at who's the writers on this, and what their political stance is or where, whatever. But what irritates me is Wheel of Time is kind of a special thing. So when you change it, you better change it for the better. And I feel like Henry Cavill has had that. And if you're not paying attention to him, realize Henry Cavill, he's a guy who played Superman. He's played several other roles. He was famously cast as The Witcher, and I think he killed it. Now, I don't know much about that series, but he did. And he was like really adamant. He read the books, he played the video games, he really liked it. And what happened is that he bounced. He did 3 seasons. I'm guessing 2 seasons in, he's like, you guys aren't following the books at all. You're changing it all up. And he cared. And so he was like, cool, I'm done. I'm not doing another 4th season. Bye. And he's struggling right now with Amazon on doing the Warhammer series, because that's also a thing that he very much cares about. And I applaud him in that. And to me, I feel like these series should have people like that who care very much about these things so that they can do proper fan service. And it's weird for me because I look online and I see there are people who actually like this show. And I'm like, I don't know. Did you read the books? Like, I don't understand. So I am under the impression that there is a swath of the population that likes the show and has never read the books. So they're just watching it as far as fantasy goes. And I'm sorry, but that's not good enough for me. If you're going to make a fantasy thing, make your own fantasy thing. Don't copy and change the homework and change the story of Wheel of Time. So make your own thing. And then have that succeed or fail based on its own. Instead, what they've done is they're like, we have the rights, and then we're going to just change it. And later on, I'm going to do Rings of Power. I don't know too much about that, and it's kind of a weird thing because it's not in a specific... But there is a couple things about it that are like, wow. Anyways, on to this. Sorry, it was a very long thing, but we're going on to it. All right. So we start off in season 2 with Rand in like a city. And as far as I can tell, they didn't tell us what city he's in, which is just like super weird. And then he's like sleeping with his landlord as a way to like pay rent. And then he works in an insane asylum. And I'm like, what? What? Okay. I have a major issue with this, simply put, because the concept of an insane asylum means your city has to have so much affluence, doing so well, that they can afford to pay not only for the building, but for the people, so that you can and you have to have enough crazy people to put them in there, and the city can afford it. So it has to be a very, very affluent city. And last we saw him, he wasn't far away from the Blight. And the Blight, which is like right on the border of the Borderlands for a reason, the enemy's right there. They don't have extra resources to be like, let's put our crazy people over here. They would be more inclined to be like, here's a sword, go charge. Like, So it's kind of a weird thing, and as far as throughout the episode, I don't know where the heck he's at. There's another thing later that I'm going to get into that I don't really like about the whole Rand thing. Like, pretty much this entire episode, Rand is just having sex with his landlord, who they tell you if you look at the Amazon thing and what the name, and I'm like, okay. And just like none of this happened. None of this happened at all. So they're just, it's all fabrication. Like Rand in this episode, it's all just BS fabrication, and they do it a lot. There's a few things they hold true to, but so far, yeah, okay. Weird thing is that going to Perrin and his party, like wherever they're traveling, it's like super green, and I'm like, well, okay, you're kind of, no, you're supposed to be going south from the Borderlands to Carrion, following this thing. So why is there green? But whatever. This is one thing that irritates me, just in general about the show, is they don't give you a sense of geography at all. At all. You're lucky if you're like, oh, this is a city we're in. And to me, there was a sense of geography, just like with everything else in the books. But to be fair, it could get it got a bit complicated. And I've actually been trying to find somebody who can do an articulation of the world and a travel map of, in the books, where they traveled, because I think that would be super cool to have, just for me, for posterity. But this show doesn't seem to care about proper geography or anything of that note. And they're just like, we're just going to do whatever we want, wherever we want. It doesn't really matter. And it's another thing on the long list of things that they do poorly that is upsetting. So, whatever. Then there's this weird thing with like Perrin's vision. I think I talked about it last episode. For starters, he doesn't have a vision, okay? He's connected to wolves. So he's gonna sense through like smell and maybe sight what the wolves around him might sense and smell. But he's like at the very beginning of it. So, and that's kind of a different thing. And instead, it seems like with this, and then I'll get into later, they're just equating everything magic in this like one bubble. And not only is that fundamentally wrong, but it's also counterintuitive to the concept of magic in general. So Perrin has a certain like ability to smell. It's not magic. It's kind of like he's getting closer in touch with wolves. And so that's what that is. And if anything, that should be a certain color. And then the Aes Sedai have their magic and a certain color. And I don't like what they're doing with the Aes Sedai magic, but that's a different thing. And then later in the episode, sorry, I'll talk about it, but Min has her like other thing. And I'm like, it just, the way they're doing it makes it seem like it's all part of the same thing. And I'm like, guys, this is just lazy. Like, you're just doing a bad job. And I don't understand why, other than laziness or not caring about the lore, or the only justification I can give is they don't want to confuse people. And I guess that's fine, but then they're also not explaining anything. And then there's this annoying thing where there's supposed to be someone in their crew who smells violence, right? Like if there was a brawl, if it was two drunk people outside of a bar and they fought, he could smell, he could sense, and basically give you an articulation of what transpired, but kind of very loosely. It's like he can just smell the violence, okay? And that's like a weird niche-y thing, and that's why he's there on this trek, to help find this dark friend, right? And then instead, they cut out that character and they decide to put Elias, who is a really awesome character in the books, who has the same powers that Perrin has, and basically totally gets rid of this other character who persists through a long part of the book series. And they just like toss him out, and we're gonna put Elias here because we didn't add him anywhere else. And I don't know what they're doing. Frankly, it seems to me that they're taking two books and cramming them into one show. And frankly, that could be doable, but the way they're doing it is so bad because it's even worse than that. It almost seems like they're taking 3 or 4 books. Now, mind you, each one of these books is the size of one Lord of the Ring book or more. So you're cramming an entire book and with 2 other friends. So this much stuff into one show. And then to make it worse, they're adding and changing things to such an extent where I don't even know what they're doing. And to make it worse, the script writing, like the dialogue, is so horrendously bad. Like I don't understand. These are pro actors. Is nobody saying, hey, sorry, this doesn't make sense? I guess not. Whatever. I'm gonna try and skim through this stuff. Okay. The Aes Sedai and the weird thing with Nynaeve and they're like healing, it's like so weird. The thing with the Red Aes Sedai is like, again, if you read the books, Aes Sedai have certain rules. They can't lie. They can't hurt people with magic. There's certain other rules, and the Red Aes Sedai like broke several of them. And now Nynaeve doesn't know that, so maybe that's kind of what she's going off of. But it's either they don't care about the rules, the show doesn't care about the rules, or which would explain why this Red Sister did these things, or the Red Sister is so blatantly like, I don't care. I'm a black Aes Sedai. I can do whatever I want. And that's just bad writing either way. So we finally get to meet Elaine Tricon, who's from... She's such a pivotal character in the entire show, and they've just ruined everything about her. You don't really get her introduction. You don't get an introduction of her brother. There was something I wanted to say, and maybe they'll do it later. It was one of my favorite parts, probably top 10, top 5 favorite parts in the entire series, where Matt has the dagger this whole time, super sick, gets healed, right? And in the process of totally, not only getting healed, but like removed from the dagger, like it's not an issue anymore, which they've totally retconned that. He goes out and he's like barely healed. He like enough food for 2 people, but he's not really like healed, like body and mind. He's there, but he's Matt and he's cantankerous. So he's walking around and he has a fight with money on the table because Matt is a gambler, with Elaine Tricon, who her brothers, and he wins with the quarterstaff. And there's this great moment about how the greatest fighter of all time lost to a farmer with the quarterstaff. It's a terrific moment in general in the books, and they just skipped over it. It's like nobody in the writing room has ever read the books, or I would argue if they have, it's only the women. It just feels like it's either written by women or whatever, because I asked my wife and she was like, who had read the same thing, and she was like, oh yeah, that was kind of a whatever scene to me. And I'm just like, oh, that was like one of the coolest scenes ever with Matt. Like, oh, no, okay. Okay, then there's a scene where it's like a bunch of exposition with Moraine and whatever. Okay, and going back to Rand, so the woman he's sleeping with, her name is Celine. And then, as far as I can tell, he doesn't say it in the show, but that's kind of weird because that is a real character. So either they're doing this weird thing or they're totally changing the fabric of who that character is. And I'm of 2 ways about it. I don't really want to spoil it, but on the same token, it's like, no, Celine is a dark friend. Not just, she's one of the Forsaken. Her name is Lanfear, and she puts on this persona, this fake persona of Celine, and tries to manipulate Perrin and others to do things. Not with Rand at all. So it's like with Rand, but in this different, oh God, the show is messing up stuff. But she shows up, and she shows up kind of randomly throughout the book series because she used to be a lover of the Dragon Reborn. back when he was Louis Theron Telamon. And so having her show up is like super weird. And this concept of like, yeah, Rand's just a whore. He can just sleep around with whatever, with some random chick who's hot. You know, she looks okay. But it's upsetting. And they just don't care. Okay, and then last time we saw Min. Okay, so Matt's captured, and then Matt does a really cool thing, which I like, which he's like, while the Red leaves him in his prison, he's like chipping away at the wall, trying to escape, which is a small, cute moment of like, oh, yay. But then he like cuts through, and in the other room, there's Min, who somehow got captured, weirdly, because she was escaping over. I don't know how. They don't explain it. They don't care. And so she's captured, which is like, no, wrong. And then they have this like weird conversation, and then we see Min magic, and it's just weird Min magic. Like, instead of her seeing the idea of that, oh, great things will happen in your future, or oh, great trouble, or oh, there's two people together, they're definitely gonna marry, or whatever. And have it be kind of like ethereal and fuzzy and not necessarily specific, but she's been able to interpret it. But it's not literal, right? But she can interpret it. Instead of that, it's like, no, she just sees Matt kill Rand. And I'm like, but her visions are A, supposed to be different, and B, there's no take-backsies. If she saw a thing, it's going to happen. If somebody's going to die, they're going to die. So effectively, what the show is saying is like, F this story, Matt is going to kill Rand at some point. Soon, clearly, because they were both this certain age. So I don't know even what to think. Yeah, again, going back to Rand and Celine having sex is just, there's a beautiful story behind it, and it's very, very sad. And Rand is supposed to be a certain way, and they're just not doing it at all. Then there's a stupid drama between Egwene, and she's like, oh, Nynaeve is doing all these things, and like, Nynaeve's training to be a warder, and I'm like, yeah, Nynaeve wouldn't do any of those things, so that's weird. But there's this like weird drama that they're having, and it doesn't make sense, and it just seems like BS CW drama that I don't know why they're doing, other than they don't know how to write. Like, the writers suck. And I don't understand why the producers also suck, and the directors also suck, and the actors also suck, and everyone's just like, I don't care, it's Amazon money. I just want to get paid. And it's upsetting to me because I'm like, you guys were gifted, you bought like the best fantasy series of all time. Instead of making it like a Lord of the Rings movie type thing, you're just ruining it. The one thing that I thought was interesting about the show, the one positive I will say, is the kind of, not quite the getting to it, but the art ceremony. Even though they didn't have it in this, they kind of indicated that's going to happen. And it makes me think that they're not really going to show it, or they are in the next episode. We'll see. But that was kind of, that rang true. It rang weird. Like, objectively, I was like, okay, cool. But with Nynaeve, and we're going to make her the next level from where she's at to the next level. I forgot the nomenclature, but whatever. All right. Moraine and Lan, it's super weird because Moraine is disconnected from the one power, which is total malarkey. And because of that, her connection with her warder is also like severed. And because of that, even though they've been effectively thick as thieves, tight for 20 years, Moraine's just like, no, I have to do my thing, and you find Nynaeve to be hot, so you go do that, and I'm gonna go do my thing and try and save the world by myself. On top of that, the way she says like, oh, you failed me because I would have died if it weren't for the Aes Sedai that protected me. And there was like the battle in the last thing, and I'm just like, this is so stupid. And he asked her a question, and he's like, you can't lie, so tell me. And then she like says some mean thing, and I'm screaming. I'm like, look, if you're following any semblance of the lore, if she's disconnected from the true source, which is where her her oaths are based off of, she can lie willy-nilly. But I can totally understand if you've been working right next to someone and for the last 20 years they can't lie. They'll manipulate, but they can't lie. And then you just trust that they just can't lie. They're still held by those oaths. But the show doesn't care about that. They don't bring it up. It's just wrong. What they're doing is wrong and weird, and I don't understand. All right. So there was this cool battle where like the Perrin and his group of Borderlanders went into a town last episode, and then they decided to like hang out, party a little bit, and then sleep. And it almost reminded me of this cool moment in like 13th Warrior, which if you haven't seen the movie, it's a great 90s movie, in my opinion. So much fun. A lot of people give a crap, whatever. But anyways, and then there's people who are like sneaking in and nobody's awake. It's super quiet. And then all of a sudden, there's two people in Perrin's room while he's sleeping in full armor. So apparently they didn't make any frickin' noise, which, sorry, if you steal armor, it's making noise when you walk around. And then they just grab him, and then Perrin wakes up and they just drag him out of the house as if they're specifically trying to capture him. And then the battle thing ensues. Now, I want to say another positive thing. There were moments where the Borderlanders were kicking butt, taking names, and I loved it. I loved it. I didn't care who they were fighting. I was very confused, but I was just like, this is great. This is great. This is a small moment of showing how good the Borderlanders are in fighting, because these are people who have spent their entire lives fighting Trollocs, which are one of the hardest things in the world to fight, way harder than an average man. So to be a survivor of living all this time where you constantly fight extremely hard things, fighting humans is like easy peasy in comparison. Anyhow, but they eventually get blasted away by these two women who are controlled by two other women without a collar, might I add, which is totally not correct. And it's the Cianchin. Like, the Cianchin have invaded this area. And again, there's no geographical reference to where the F we are in the world with Perrin. Just suddenly, the Cianchin arrive and decide to take this town. And for starters, that's not how they do things. They don't attack in the middle of the night. They just none of this is correct. And it's also like, why are they here? And then to make it worse, in the morning, they're all there, gathered together for some unspoken reason. And then the head of the Cianchin, I guess, she's on this ridiculously oversized triangle. Sorry, not triangle. Jeez. What am I trying to... Pyramid with a throne on top. And then right next to her is one of the Forsaken, who they thought they killed last season, but I guess he's still alive because we found out at the beginning of the first season. Whatever. But so he's right there. So, and the way again with the Cianchin, the way they make them seem and come across is just evil, 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 evil. And to me, as a reader, I've read the book several times. I don't like the Cianchin. I think that they're very kind of wrong and a little psycho on their viewpoints and their mentality. But in general, there are positive sides to their culture. However, they also are totally fine with slavery and other things. But because they're so uniform and so devout in following the dictates of the people on the top, they tend to be very, very efficient and very effective in organizing and cleaning up things and building things and doing things. So it is kind of an interesting debate for you as a reader. But instead of having that, they've effectively, with the coloration and the type of armor that they have and their weird arrival and all this other stuff, they've just bastardized it. And instead of making them this like force to be reckoned with that comes in at a later point, which is what they are in the books, they come in right now and they're like, we're here. And I'm like, okay, what? And effectively, they're changing everything, and I don't like it. It's super weird. I don't like it. I don't understand. I don't know why they're doing this, and it's frankly upsetting. And I swear to you, I'm thinking after I finish this gosh darn season, I don't know if I want to do a third season because this is so bad. So if you want me to do a third season afterwards, or if you want me to jam through this and do it slower, I'm so sorry it took so long. I love you all. Last little bit. Funny, we go back to Rand. They don't say what city he's in, which is, again, confusing me. I'm like, where the heck is he? But then they have, Mazarin Tame, who's supposed to be with Aes Sedai in Tarvalon. And maybe he is in Tarvalon. I don't think so, though. But that's where he's supposed to be because he was this bad guy in the last season that they cut off from the source. He's only supposed to live a little bit, and now he's insane. So he's in this insane asylum. And then Rand's like, conveniently, I work at this insane asylum. And maybe that was what Rand's plan was. But it still doesn't make any sense to have an insane asylum. It's like super weird. I don't get it. So maybe he's in Tarvalon. But if that's the case, then how they articulated Tarvalon is horrible. Like, it's just horrible. Where it looks like there's this wall and then they're just like kind of Brazil-like shanties outside the wall. And I'm like, that's not what the Aes Sedai home place would allow. So where are you guys? Anyhow, I love you all. Plaid Man out. I gotta go and take care of my dogs. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you want me to do next. I need to catch up on some books and some other stuff. Just a fun show for you to watch is Silo on Apple TV. Very good. They're on season 2. In comparison to this show, it's like a breeze to watch and listen to. It's so wonderful. So I love you guys. Bye-bye.